but a lot of the tourists that we take out are people that have read the book Mutiny on the Bounty when they've been, when they've been kids, and just had the idea that they wanted to, go out and see where it all happened.
Tropical islands seduce with promises of paradise, endless stretches of untouched sand, swaying palms, and the illusion of carefree bliss. Pitcairn shatters that fantasy. This remote speck in the Pacific, home to just a few dozen souls, hides a history drenched in mutiny, isolation, and disturbing secrets. Behind its rugged beauty lies a truth darker than fiction, a place where survival hinges on resilience and unsettling traditions. The reality here is nothing like the postcards. So forget the daydreams, buckle up as we expose the 12 darkest secrets of Pitcairn Island, from its blood-soaked origins to the chilling realities of life at the edge of the world. Trust us, you're not ready for what comes next. If you enjoyed these chilling revelations, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more. Number 1, Pitcairn Island is one of the least populated territories in the world, with only about 40 to 50 permanent residents as of 2025. Most of its inhabitants are descendants of the HMS Bounty mutineers and their Tahitian companions, who settled on the island in 1789 to evade capture. Over the years, the population has steadily declined due to limited opportunities, prompting many younger generations to migrate to countries like New Zealand and the UK. The island's small community originally relied on farming, hunting, and fishing, but harsh living conditions and isolation have made it difficult to sustain a thriving population. Despite efforts to encourage immigration, few people choose to settle permanently due to the lack of modern amenities and limited access to healthcare and education. But this journey isn't for the faint of heart. The remoteness that draws adventurers also isolates its people in ways few can imagine. Number 2, Pitcairn has no airport or major seaport, making travel to and from the island incredibly difficult. It's understandable to know that its rugged, mountainous terrain and jagged coastline rule out the possibility of constructing an airstrip. The island has just one main road, aptly named the Hill of Difficulty, which connects the boat landing area to the small residential settlement. This steep, unpaved path is the only transportation route, used primarily by all-terrain vehicles and pedestrians. Reaching Pitcairn is a lengthy and complex process. Travelers must first fly to Tahiti or Auckland, then take another flight to Mangareva in French Polynesia, followed by a grueling 32-hour sea voyage. This extreme isolation makes Pitcairn one of the hardest places in the world to access. Without a proper harbor, supply ships from New Zealand must anchor offshore, forcing residents to use small boats to ferry goods and passengers to land. Everything, from food and fuel to medical supplies, depends on these infrequent shipments. In emergencies, accessing medical care is extremely difficult. Those needing urgent treatment must wait days for a helicopter or boat from a neighboring country. Despite these challenges, the islanders have adapted by growing their own food, fishing, and maintaining a tightly knit, self-reliant community. Life on Pitcairn remains a test of resilience and patience. Number 3, Pitcairn's crushing isolation created a world without witnesses, where the nearest help was 3,300 miles of open ocean away. For generations, conflicts were settled not in courts but in blood. Feuds between families turned deadly, grievances festered into violence, and justice came at the end of a knife or the barrel of one of the Bounty's rusting muskets. The island's infamous killing stones still bear silent testament to this era, their smooth surfaces allegedly worn by centuries of clandestine executions under the indifferent stars. This geographical prison didn't just enable violence, it perfected it. With no ships to flee on and no authorities to hear cries for help, abusers operated with impunity. Victims found themselves trapped in a nightmare where their tormentors were also their neighbors, their judges, and sometimes even their own kin. The same cliffs that shielded Pitcairn from the world became walls of a gilded cage, where dark traditions took root like vines, strangling the community from within. Even today, elders speak in hushed tones of the bad old days, but the island's thick silence suggests some secrets remain buried in its volcanic soil. Number 4. Pitcairn remains a community cleaved in half, where every shared meal and church service hums with unspoken tensions. The island's mere 40-odd residents are locked in a cold war between those who demanded justice and families who still spit the word traitors under their breath, their loyalties as tangled as the bounty's bloodlines. In a place where everyone shares ancestors and ocean views, there's no escaping the glares across the pulpit or the sudden silences when certain surnames are mentioned. Though British patrol boats now appear like clockwork and every government meeting has a UK observer scribbling notes, the thump-thump of approaching helicopters still stiffens spines. Many islanders wear their resentment like armor, viewing oversight not as protection but as occupation. Another chapter in centuries of outsiders misunderstanding their ways. Yet the real tragedy lingers in the empty houses. Survivors who fled and can't return, their childhood homes now occupied by the ghosts of their abusers' relatives. The paradise Fletcher Christian sought has become a gilded cage, its bars made of genealogy and gossip, where the waves still whisper about who took which side when the world came knocking. Number 5, let me drag you back to 1787 when the history of Pitcairn Island started. The British Navy sent Captain Bligh and the HMS Bounty on a grim mission, haul breadfruit from Tahiti to feed Caribbean slaves. The voyage was hell, 10 months of near shipwrecks, boiling tensions, and Bligh's merciless rule. When they finally reached Tahiti, the crew tasted paradise, white sands, warm waters, and Tahitian women. 5 months of decadence rotted their discipline. By the time Bligh ordered them back, they were animals in revolt. Fletcher Christian, Bligh's own friend, led the mutiny. The captain and his loyalists were cast adrift in a tiny boat, left to die under the sun's slow execution. Now fugitives of the crown, the mutineers fled with stolen Tahitian men and women, vanishing into the Pacific's void. Their salvation? A cartographer's error, Pitcairn, an island misplaced on British maps. They burned the Bounty, sealing their fate. But paradise was a slaughterhouse. The men turned on each other, jealousy, rage, and madness under the unblinking sky. The Tahitians were enslaved, then butchered. The mutineers drank, brawled, and bled out one by one. When McCoy tried to take one of the 3 Tahitian women left for the 6 Tahitian men, those men finally snapped. They stole weapons, stalked the Europeans, and systematically killed them, mostly by decapitation. It was a cold, calculated act of revenge for years of mistreatment. 5 of the 9 European men were dead in a matter of hours. And then came another twist. That very night, the Tahitian women killed the Tahitian men in their sleep, possibly out of fear for their own lives or loyalty to their children, many of whom were part European. The island descended into bloodshed, trauma, and death until only one man, John Adams, was left alive. Adams, previously a passive participant, found himself as the sole patriarch of a traumatized and chaotic island. Struck by the responsibility and likely fearing divine judgment, he turned to religion, educating himself through the Bible and establishing a rigid Christian-style society. Breaking the moonshine still, adopting a moral code, and guiding the islanders with religious rituals, he reshaped Pitcairn into a theocratic community. By the time British ships arrived in 1808, Adams had become a respected leader with a flowing gray beard, surrounded by children, many of whom were his own descendants. His transformation from survivor to spiritual father marked a rare calm period in Pitcairn's stormy past, though the island's later history would again spiral into scandal and crime. Number 6. Due to that terrible incident, Pitcairn Island is now sprinkled with unmarked graves like some kind of macabre treasure hunt, except the prizes are bones, and the only clues are the unsettling chill that creeps up your neck when you wander too far off the path. No headstones, no records, just whispers in the wind and the occasional shiver down a visitor's spine. One of the most notable cases involves John Adams, the last surviving mutineer, whose grave marker mysteriously vanished after his death in 1829. During a temporary relocation of some islanders to Norfolk Island, the marker was removed and later found its way to the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, England. This incident highlights the challenges of preserving historical sites on Pitcairn. Much of what is known about these unmarked graves comes from oral traditions, with stories of secret burials and violent clashes passed down through generations. Archaeologists poke around now and then, turning up bones and broken bottles, but let's be real, some secrets are better left buried. Or at least that's what the ghosts keep muttering after dark. Number 7. From generations to generations, the intertwined bloodlines now cast long, inescapable shadows over Pitcairn's future. With each passing decade, the island's children inherit not just the names of their forebears, but also their hidden frailties, whispers of weakened immunity, recessive disorders lying dormant like buried shipwrecks, and a creeping biological fragility that no amount of island resilience can undo. Outsiders speak in hushed tones of founder's effect, but for Pitcairn's families, it's a slow, intimate strangulation, fewer viable births, the same faces staring back through time, and the terrifying knowledge that their survival now depends on outside blood that may never come. The mutineers escaped the noose, but their descendants remain trapped in a genetic prison of their own making, one that nature, in its cruel arithmetic, may yet decide to empty forever. Number 8. Pitcairn Island's early settlers had to make do with what they could grow and catch: breadfruit, taro, sweet potatoes, and fish from the ocean. But things took a dark turn when alcohol entered the picture. One of the bounty mutineers, William McCoy, knew how to distill liquor, so he rigged up a homemade, still using an old copper kettle from the ship. Before long, the island had its own signature brew, Pitcairn whiskey, and let's just say it didn't lead to happy hour. The stuff was strong, and it didn't take long for drunken brawls and chaos to tear through the tiny community. McCoy himself ended up jumping into the sea with a rock tied to his neck, and another mutineer, Matthew Quintal, was killed by his own friends after one too many violent drunken outbursts. After all that mess, the islanders banned alcohol outright for over 200 years. It became a huge taboo, a reminder of their darkest days. But in 2009, the Pitcairn government finally lifted the ban, allowing alcohol under strict rules. Even now, though, the whole thing stands as a warning, how one bad invention can nearly destroy an entire community. Some lessons, it seems, you only have to learn once. Number 9. Behind Pitcairn's idyllic facade lies a troubling history. The 2004 sexual abuse trials on Pitcairn Island exposed decades of systemic abuse, shaking the foundation of this remote community. 6 men, including then Mayor Steve Christian and his son Randy, were convicted of sexual offenses against underage girls, with some crimes dating back to the 1960s. The trials revealed a deeply entrenched culture where abuse had been normalized, with victims often silenced by the island's isolation and close-knit social structure. Testimonies delivered via video link from New Zealand painted a grim picture of exploitation in settings ranging from homes to churches, forcing the world to confront Pitcairn's hidden trauma. The convictions, which encompassed nearly half the adult male population, sparked outrage and soul-searching, challenging long-held notions of cultural relativism and justice.
If you look back through the records, the vast majority of girls who had grown up on Pitcairn did have their first child between 12 and 15. The investigation's findings pointed to a culture where underage sex and sexual abuse were ingrained and to some extent accepted practices, shielded by the community's tight-knit nature and geographical isolation.
In the wake of the trials, Pitcairn grappled with division, as some residents defended the accused, framing the abuse as part of local tradition. This resistance underscored the difficulty of upending deeply ingrained norms. While the island implemented reforms, including increased oversight from New Zealand and the UK, progress proved uneven. A 2016 child pornography conviction involving another former mayor reignited concerns about whether meaningful change had taken root. Yet there were signs of slow transformation. Younger generations, exposed to broader perspectives through education abroad, began challenging old attitudes. Today, Pitcairn's journey toward accountability remains unfinished, a stark reminder of how isolation can both preserve and distort a community's moral compass. The scars of the past endure, but so does a cautious hope for a more transparent future. Number 10. After the 2004 incident, therapy happens over cracked teacups at the Island Hall, where counseling sessions double as minefields. How do you heal when your therapist is your uncle's fishing buddy and your abuser's daughter sits beside you at Sunday service? The island's infamous stiff upper lip mentality crumbles under the weight of generations of repressed pain, manifesting in hushed breakdowns behind banana groves and the occasional midnight scream swallowed by the roaring Pacific. With no full-time mental health professionals and supply ships carrying more canned goods than antidepressants, Pitcairn has become a petri dish for silent suffering. The youth caught between their parents' denial and the internet's harsh truths are particularly vulnerable, with boredom and isolation brewing a dangerous cocktail of substance experimentation and depressive spirals. While concrete data is scarce, the island's size makes anonymity impossible. The telltale signs emerge: the uptick in fishing accidents, the whispered mentions of so-and-so's boy drinking himself stupid at the cave again. Even the British government's well-meaning fly-in psychologists often do more harm than good with their 6-week rotations, just long enough to reopen old wounds before disappearing back across 3,000 miles of ocean, leaving prescriptions that won't be refilled for months. The cruel irony? This island, that once hid mutineers, now traps its own people in a cycle of intergenerational trauma, with the same waves that brought their ancestors, ensuring no one can escape the psychological fallout. Number 11. Beneath the quaint charm of Pitcairn's single classroom education lies a system stretched to its breaking point. The same teacher responsible for molding young minds must also play janitor, handyman, and its support when the satellite internet decides to work. Students receive a patchwork education where critical gaps in STEM subjects or literature are overlooked out of necessity, leaving them at a disadvantage if they ever leave the island. The much celebrated practical skills come at a cost. While kids can gut fish and repair roofs, many struggle with basic academic concepts taken for granted elsewhere. As Pitcairns believe that you can't marry unless you learn. If you don't know how to make it, you shouldn't get married. Really? It's a saying on Pitcairn Island. The real tragedy unfolds at age 16 when education simply ends. Teenagers face an impossible choice: abandon their families for a foreign education system they're woefully unprepared to navigate, or remain on Pitcairn with no prospects beyond subsistence living. Those who leave often experience culture shock so severe it derails their futures. One moment they're in a classroom of 3 students, the next they're lost in a crowded New Zealand high school where no one understands their unique dialect or trauma history. Meanwhile, those who stay inherit an island with no jobs, no higher learning, and no way to apply their chicken negotiation skills in a 20th-century economy. The system's greatest failure? It perfectly prepares children for a Pitcairn that no longer exists, if it ever did. Number 12. Surprisingly, Pitcairn Island has no hospitals, clinics, or pharmacies, leaving residents to rely on self-care, traditional remedies, and the collective knowledge of the community. Minor ailments are treated with basic medications from supply shipments or homegrown solutions passed down through generations. For more serious issues, a visiting doctor from New Zealand or the UK occasionally conducts checkups, but these visits are rare, meaning many conditions go untreated for long periods. In emergencies, evacuation is a logistical nightmare, requiring patients to wait for a supply ship or be transported by small boat to a larger vessel offshore. In life or death situations, the British or New Zealand Coast Guard may dispatch a helicopter, but the process is slow and weather dependent. Truth be told, the locals refused to ravage this land, as one resident believed that some scars from the outside world are best left untouched. There's a number of opportunities that exist on paper today, like coffee starting to evolve, and in a number of other industries that are possible industries that haven't been tapped into here. Whereas in the past, that was the primary economy or revenue for Pitcairn, while it still exists today. Despite these challenges, Pitcairners have developed a resilient, community-driven approach to healthcare. Neighbors step in to assist with injuries, illnesses, or even makeshift nursing duties. reinforcing the island's strong social bonds. The lack of professional medical care forces residents to live cautiously, avoiding unnecessary risks while relying on one another in times of crisis. This self-sufficient mindset has kept the community functioning for generations, proving that while modern medicine may be absent, determination and solidarity go a long way. Beneath its postcard-perfect surface, this island hides chilling truths. The blood of mutineers still runs thick in its isolated community, their tangled family trees bearing strange fruit. A lonely prison stands as a grim reminder of darkness that once festered here. The waves crash against cliffs that have witnessed unspeakable acts, while the wind carries echoes of long-dead sailors. Though the beaches gleam, something primal lingers in the dense jungle air. Visitors rarely stay long. There's an unshakable feeling that Pitcairn watches, waits, and remembers. Some paradises are better left unexplored. Like and subscribe to uncover other cursed secrets, where mutiny's blood still flows and the island never forgets.